Thank you for downloading episode 59 of We Got This with Mark and Hal. Hey, while we're at it, doing this podcast thing, and you're doing this whole listening to a podcast thing, if you're enjoying the show, why not take a moment to rate and review us on iTunes so you can help us find new listeners and grow the community of people that you can argue or agree with about every decision we make. So take a second. Do it. Just do it. It'll feel great. And now, without any further ado, episode 59 of We Got This with Mark and Hal.
Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all, practical or digital effects.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcasts should have a theme song. Podcasts should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to We Got This. How are you, Hal?
I'm doing really well. I was going to be quiet for a really long time, and everybody would think you were alone.
No, the only time any of us is alone on this show is apparently when you do these pre-rolls, which I did not know were a thing until a couple of episodes ago.
Well, you're part of it. You've been indoctrinated.
Ah, man.
I won't make you do them. Don't worry.
So let me tell everybody where we are right now. We are in the beautiful home of Tommy and Barb Haake.
Hello.
This is Tommy Haake who is joining us on the episode. Tommy, we are here today to talk about practical effects versus digital effects. And you work in the special effects world.
I do. That's correct. Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your experience in the special effects world.
Oh, gosh. Well, I work at a wonderful special effects shop that do mostly specialty costumes. But we also happen to find ourselves into animatronics and other practical special effects arenas.
So we've really stacked the deck in favor of practical effects.
That's correct. Yeah. I'm joined here by no one representing the digital effects world.
It's a tennis ball that will soon be Gollum.
We will digitally add in that character.
It seemed appropriate.
Yeah, Andy Serkis is covered with dots somewhere in New Zealand, and he's filming his part.
Man.
And we'll add it in later.
Are there any other stop motion, is he the only actor that is known as the stop motion actor? He's got to be the only one, because now he's even in...
Yeah, he's kind of stop motion Doug Jones. Or not stop motion, but mocap Doug Jones.
He's a pioneer. Although I have seen... I'm a gamer, and I have a PlayStation 4 on which I play NBA 2K16. And every game you play, there's a pre-show with Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, and Shaq. And when they filmed that, they did that in motion capture. So they're wearing the full suit with the dots, and they have the camera attached to their head that's tracking their face, but they record, they're just sitting at a table doing so you have Shaq going
the thing I like about the Houston Rockets is their perimeter shooting. They got the best shooters in the league.
But he's doing it mocap.
There's no reason
Wow.
to do motion capture for that.
No need.
Have either of you guys ever worn a motion capture suit?
I have not had that distinct pleasure.
I have worn a motion capture suit. I once did, and it was for... God bless the guys at Cal Arts, because they've got a heck of a lab up there for creating stuff. I did a motion capture for a student film at Cal Arts where I played one of the 3 blind mice. and I'll tell you this, you never feel as self-conscious as you do when you are wearing a skin-tight costume that, in my mind, here are a bunch of tiny little balls that point out all your flaws. It wasn't like I'm putting them on the joint parts of you. It's like, nope, these are going on your love handle.
Here's your trick knee.
So, this is your trick knee. This one. And, that extra weird thick neck you have. We're going to put a couple of white dots on that thing.
It's an exercise of making you feel better about yourself.
Right.
Because if you can feel good in a motion capture suit, then you've achieved a new state.
Yeah, you're set. That's good.
So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to break down, because I think a lot of people have strong feelings on one versus the other. Some people really like what digital effects have brought to filmmaking in terms of, you couldn't have had an Avengers or Lord of the Rings without the progress that was made in digital effects.
Right.
Yeah, and that's true.
But on the other side, not having practical effects like we saw in the Star Wars prequels really removes you from what's happening in the film. You like to feel that there are physical objects there.
There's a vast difference between Phantom Menace and Force Awakens. And I feel like a big part of that gap is practical effects.
Yeah. So
should we mention though? I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I was going to say, I think what we should do is break down what falls in the realm of practical effects and what falls in the realm of digital effects, so that we know sort of what's what, and we can really examine the argument a little better.
Well, let's step back before that and just say to anyone who may be listening to this, who is usually listening to us talk about food, honestly,
Yes.
Who sees the title of this episode and goes, "What does that mean?" Tommy, break down what is the difference. As a special effectsman, what's the difference between a practical effect and a digital effect?
First of all, I love the title special effectsman.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That sounds like some sort of woodworker.
Right. Yeah. It's a craft.
Making a boat full of special effects. Gosh, well, I think in the traditional definition, it is either something you can hold on set or touch, or something that you can't. That line is, of course, blurring every single day for us. I do a lot of work with sculptors where I will take their clay sculpture, I will scan it into the computer, I will send that scan to a digital artist who will refine that in ZBrush or Maya. They will pass it back to me. I will 3D print it out and mirror it, and then we'll have two halves of whatever thing.
Wow.
So there are digital elements. So there are actual model builders who aren't just building models. Models that will wind up being digital characters are built first with practical models.
Yes, because the artists, the either the model builders or the sculptors are classically trained in these forms and these techniques, and that is such an important part of the design of whatever you're making, a character, a building, a ship, that it can't be skipped. And there's so much to learn on the digital side of knowing the program, knowing how to manipulate the things in the program, knowing how to manipulate the lighting and the scenery and that kind of thing, that the sculptors who are on the digital side don't have time or haven't learned all of this, technical, artistic knowledge of classical form. So some of them have, of course, but you really have to balance and pass back and forth between these two schools of thought and these two expert groups.
Okay. So, because when we went recently, when the Thrilling Adventure Hour went to New Zealand, we went and visited the Weta Workshop. And they have, in their studio, they have all of these practical models of characters from assorted things.
Right.
That makes sense because I thought that those were just baloney. Like, these were characters that were digital characters that were built digitally. And I was like, oh, you guys just made a couple of models for the people that are taking the tour.
So here's
like, see, this is how we do it.
And that is, honestly, that is part of it. We build a lot of models. If we're doing 2, we'll make 3 and we'll put one in the shop. And sales is a big part of it for us. But, there's also the element that digital is great, but it's not perfect. And if you have a fully painted, full-size version, even though it may not be animated or articulated, of whatever you're shooting on set, as a lighting reference, you shoot a couple of frames with that inanimate thing, then the digital artists have a reference to look back on and say, okay, on this type of film, through this type of lens, on this type of camera, this character in this color looks like X.
Right.
And then they have something to base all of their digital effects work on.
Okay.
So they'll do those for what they call them lighting reference or, color reference models. And they'll do full-size models.
Consider them actor reference models.
Of course.
Because as an actor, if I'm on set, because of all these action movies that Hal and I have done.
Oh,
yeah. Tons. My God.
Hal's got his Captain America shirt on right now.
Mm-hmm.
Not because it's the only t-shirt he owns, which it is.
I have 3. Be fair.
You have a Thrilling Adventure Hour, a Welcome to Night Vale, and a Captain America. You also have that Red Avengers shirt.
Here's the thing. You're absolutely right. I have like 4 or 5 t-shirts that are in rotation. But as if I lose weight, then I have a lot of t-shirts.
Then you have way more shirts.
I refuse to buy new t-shirts. I refuse. And I work a job full time where I will wear, I guarantee you can go to anybody who I work with and they will tell you what my entire wardrobe is and they'll be 100% right.
Yeah, they know your whole wardrobe.
They're like, oh, it's Tuesdays. He's wearing the green one again.
So this feels like a secondary, we got this podcast, which is how long is it okay to recycle a single item of clothing?
Yeah, how long should your rotation be?
Look, I wash stuff. I'm fortunate to have a washer and dryer in my home so I can
that
wash.
Gets a serious workout every 5 days.
At this point, they should be like tissue paper. I'm surprised they're holding together. That's a special effect right there.
But getting back to my point, Hal and I have not done a ton of action movies, but we are actors, and I can only imagine that it is easier to be terrified of a big, scary robot soldier if it is actually on set with you than a tennis ball on the end of a stick. Because also, if the three of us were in a scene together and we're looking at a tennis ball on a stick, the three of us are going to be looking at three different things.
Of course. And imagining three different things. Right. Exactly. It's like reading a book with three different people. It's all going to look different in your head.
Right. But to have that reference, there's something to that. There's something, and that for me is what, is why I love practical effects so much. I know we're going to have to pick one, and I know that they are very integrated.
Yes.
But a thing about practical effects that I love is everybody's seeing it in real time, and you can tell a visceral performance. People fell in love with BB-8 because the actors playing those characters fell in love with BB-8 because he was on set with them.
Right. And he was cute. He was there.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. I want to, there are some things that for me fall kind of in between. I know, like, when we talk about stop motion, we're talking about a practical effect.
Truly.
It's an actual physical thing that we're moving and frame by frame shooting it. For something like green screen, like when they made Superman fly in Superman the Motion Picture, sometimes that was him being dragged by wires in front of something, in front of a plate they'd already shot or in the background. But there was certainly in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, the
best Superman.
Oh yeah.
Right.
The best Superman. There was a lot of green screen in that. Does that fall under a practical? I mean, it's not digital.
It is digital.
It is a digital.
Absolutely. Yeah. A long time ago, they would rotoscope. It's called rotoscoping, going frame by frame and isolating the human from the background.
Okay.
They did a lot of that in like the original Tron. That's how you got those glowy lines. That was not digital. That was a practical effect. It was painted on the film one frame at a time by people.
Wow.
That's a practical, that's a practical effect.
That was a pioneering digital film because of the light cycles.
Light cycles and a master control program and all of those. Those were all digital effects, right? So green screen nowadays is a digital effect. Or blue screen. You select a color in the computer. You say that color, get rid of it. And everything that's that color goes away. And then you can drop in a layer behind the human layer, whatever you want. So yeah, that's a digital effect.
So useful in life. Not just in the weight.
Wait, there's one color that you want to get rid of? Hal, we're not doing best race.
Hal doesn't like purple.
I'm tired of all these purple people in my life.
Oh, you mean the one-eyed, one-horned flying ones?
Yeah, they eat people.
Now, hold on. Let me ask. Is that song saying that the monster is purple and eats people? Or is it a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater?
An eater of purple people.
An eater of purple people. Because if that's the case, that is a starving animal.
I mean, I think this is like the PetSmart argument, right?
Oh, like it's...
Is it PetSmart or is it PetSmart?
Oh, that's true.
Getting back to effects. You mentioned Coraline, and that's interesting because Coraline, they actually 3D printed the faces and the expressions.
Really?
Yes. So in essence, it is sort of digital. We're seeing this blending, right? We're seeing a computer iterate the faces and the face shapes for every frame and then print those out, and they snapped on with little magnets. And then they digitally painted out the lines where the faces and the expression pieces snapped on the armature. So, yeah.
So digital and practical have really become married at this point.
Yes, they have.
For me, I've said for a long time, I've erred on the side of loving the practical effects more than the digital effects. But this is an argument that I've made for probably 25 years.
Sure.
Because, 25 years ago, digital effects didn't look real. And that's the difference now, I guess, is, the first time I think that the digital faces looked real to me and looked really expressive and emotional was, Toy Story, which was 20 years ago this year.
Sure.
But there's still, because those are toys, there's still something in creating humans, even with like Final Fantasy, when the first Final Fantasy movie came out. At first I thought to myself, this is bad because actors are done now because these things look like humans. They move like humans. They are physically nearly perfect representations of humans, except the eyes are the window to the soul. And I've never seen a digital character whose eyes seemed exactly right.
Well, and there you're talking about almost an animation. Like, I consider Final Fantasy to be a cartoon, so it's more
Right.
like using digital in animation versus a digital effect in like, there's something.
But look at the people in in the first Harry Potter movie.
Sure.
In Sorcerer's Stone, when Harry is battling against the big, the troll in the bathroom, or when they're playing Quidditch, and it is pretty clear that you have just switched from a shot of Daniel Radcliffe to an animated Polar Express character.
Sure. Or Digital Domain's Neo when he's fighting all of the Agent Smiths. So what we're talking about here really is something called the uncanny valley. And this is your brain's ability to discern and well, it's this pit. Things look real and look real and look more real and more real. And Toy Story was on the upslope. Mm-hmm. And then when you get right next to, it looks really real. Right before you get to that looks perfect and real, there's this huge valley of nope, it's unacceptable to your brain. It doesn't look real at all.
Really?
And the reason that is because your brain maps movements that it sees onto its own motor cortex, which is why things, when you try to do something, if you've seen someone do it before, it's easier. And something's not right. The motor cortex is like, that's weird. That doesn't look right. And so your brain goes, duh, and says, no, something's very wrong with this. And your survival instinct kicks in and says, this is something, I should stay away from this weird person. Something's wrong.
But why is it when it gets close to perfection that valley happens? Why doesn't it happen at the very beginning?
Because
nope, this crude stick figure does not look like a person.
Because everything that works perfectly, and everything that doesn't work is in stark contrast to the things that aren't working.
Example being the eyes.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
My mind is super blown, and I wish there was a glass vase with a hole in it on this table.
I'll tell you one place where, like, I fall. I know you're a practical effects guy, Mark.
Right.
And I don't know where you fall. Obviously, you get your work out of both. So you appreciate.
I guess I do. Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, I like digital. I respect it a lot. The one place I can't stand it is in horror films. I need to see, like, the blood needs to feel real. Like, the original Friday the 13th, which is not a masterpiece of a film, but still, like, you actually see a knife come through a guy, or the little boy pulling the woman out of the boat at the end. That's a big spoiler. I think it's been, 36 years?
They've had time.
I'm sorry, did you just refer to him as little boy?
Yeah, he's a little boy at the end of Friday the 13th.
Yeah, but he's terrifying. But
he's
little
not,
boy is evocative of, oh, cute. No, it's a monster child coming out of the water. You're talking about that very last shot.
Yes.
In the original Friday the 13th.
Yeah, they could have done that digitally nowadays, and it wouldn't be as impactful. Or the mother getting pulled through the door at the end of Nightmare on Elm Street.
Chrissy in the water and Jaws.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Those things don't work digitally. Jaws was made as a film by a practical effect that didn't work properly.
Correct. Yes.
So, like, in that way, there are just certain places you can't generate terror with digital things as well.
So that actually speaks to something that I think, and I think that it's too easy for the director's mind to do it digitally. You can do whatever you want. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. It never goes wrong. You can tweak it until it's done.
Movies used to be more exciting.
Right. And I think that the pressure of mistakes and things going wrong on set prompt instant creativity. And I think it's important that people are pushed to create like that. I'm sure it's torturous for those people.
Right.
But
Meaning if something goes wrong, like, you want there to be imperfections in an effect? Or?
No, I mean, not everything is possible in a movie. So you want to get a shot of a car jumping off a thing and flipping twice and doing, okay, well, that's not quite possible. So how can we make this still exciting and possible? And then you're forced to kind of dig into the meat of why that thing is interesting or exciting and create the same thing, the same feeling, but maybe with a slightly more grounded effect.
Okay.
Right?
So, like, the idea of, look, we don't have all of this icing, so how do we make the cake taste better so you don't need as much icing?
Right, sure. Yeah, exactly.
For me, it's I like that. I like that a lot. That creativity that's required of having parameters.
Yeah.
If something isn't given parameters, then it can become a mess. That's the reason that Julie Taymor's original version of Spider-Man was apparently a giant, terrible mess because she was not given parameters by the producers of the play. To go way off on a tangent.
No, but in Star Wars too, right? George Lucas, when he was new, didn't have everyone saying, yes, Mr. Lucas. And the original Star Wars films were fantastic. And then when we got to the prequels, it was a huge deal. And I'm sure nobody questioned anything he wanted to do.
Well, and also because you could make anything. That's part of the problem for me is if you can make anything digitally, and I guess this is just the old school in me. If you can make anything digitally, then I, as an audience member, am not wowed by it happening. Unless I know that it was not done digitally, then it blows my mind. BB-8 blows my mind. Because you know that it could not have been done with digital effects. James Bond fighting on top of a moving train in Casino Royale. Was it Casino Royale or was it Quantum of Solace? I think it was the beginning of
Casino Royale.
Casino Royale. That scene was stuntmen on top of a train. The blowing up of the bridge in Bridge on the River Kwai is exciting because you know it really happened.
Right.
And there's something gets lost nowadays with when you see an amazing effect in a movie and you go, oh, wow, they have really good computers now. Is always the...
So a special effect is a magic trick, right?
Yes.
And a special effect done with computers that you can tell it's done by computers is a magic trick that you know the mechanics of.
Yeah. And a magic trick doesn't work if you know how it's done.
Of course.
Right. But if it's done really well, then it tricks you on two layers.
Exactly.
For example, the Lego movie. Which a lot of people think was done practically, was done digitally.
Yes.
But made to look practical. So it appears 100% to be a stop motion film and a great one. If you haven't seen it, watch it. You will not be able to tell. You'll think like, oh, they did a couple digital things here and there to create a laser effect or for lighting or whatever. But it's a digital film. So that's when it's done well. But you had to get through, I think the original, the first use of computer animation was in Star Trek 2.
Ooh.
Or was it?
It might have been Tron.
It was either or Tron.
It might have been Tron.
I heard a rumor about the very first digital effect I'll go to in a minute.
All right.
Please. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought I wanted
was it
to
like
finish
some
your topic.
1909 film where like
No.
they made the train out of drawings?
No, the rumor that I heard, I don't know if it's true, is that a Coke booger was digitally removed from Neil Young's nose in the movie The Last Waltz.
Wow.
That I heard was the very first digital effect.
Wow.
I have never heard that.
I kind of want to look that up now. That's what I heard was the first digital effect.
That's fantastic.
But the tour of the Genesis planet in Star Trek 2 was an early use of computer animation, but you had to get through that in Young Sherlock Holmes, The Stained Glass Night.
And you had to get through that. You had to get through Aladdin and the flight through the cave.
Oh, yeah.
When you're like, oh, come on. This looks nothing like the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Right. But if you don't go through that stuff, you don't get to the Lego movie. So
of course,
you've got to be pushing that medium forward. A lot of them,
or Toy Story even.
Yeah. Toy Story doesn't. And without Luxo Jr., there's no Toy Story.
Right.
They couldn't have happened. That's the thing. A lot of these things couldn't happen. If you know how the magic trick works, the magic trick doesn't work.
Of course.
But digital effects have made it possible to do way bigger magic tricks.
Yes.
Like the magic tricks have gotten better, but you know how they work.
Right.
But terrible practical effects. And by this, I mean every action television show from the 1970s. And if you haven't seen Captain America from that, where he's wearing like, they could have put any helmet on that guy, but they put the biggest, thickest, motorcycle helmet on him.
Yes.
Like it looks like he's got a motorcycle helmet that has its own motorcycle helmet to ride on the weekends. And when he jumps, it's just him falling and then they roll it back in reverse or he throws something and they rely on a sound effect.
Yeah.
It just looks terrible. And then,
you're like, if we make that rock sound heavy, no one will realize that it is a foam brick.
You're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, so bad effects, bad digital, bad practical.
Bad effects are bad effects.
They suck the same way, but Clash of the Titans, which has a bunch of stop motion in it, still holds up for the movie that it is. It has a good combination.
You know, let's talk about Ray Harryhausen for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Ray Harryhausen's effects. Ray Harryhausen created the effects for a lot of classic movies. He did the original Clash of the Titans. What are some of his others that he did? Do we know?
that was his. That
Can
was
we name
his
him?
final.
These are the things I should know.
Yeah, Jason the Argonaut, Sinbad and the Voyage of the Seven Seas.
A lot of those sort of epic, swords and sandals
Barefoot in the
epics.
Park, The Odd Couple.
All
He
right.
did,
I think you're confusing Ray
When Harry
Harryhausen
Met
with
Sally?
Simon.
Okay, and Billy Wilder. He did The African Queen.
All right.
Okay, fair enough.
But those Ray Harryhausen effects, by today's standards, they're beautiful works of art. The effects that he created, they move fluidly. They're amazing, immaculate models. But by today's standards, no one's going to buy that those skeletons are actually swinging swords.
But those were things that wouldn't have been possible in the time with people or with anything. So he was forced to think creatively and come up with this. Well, if I just shoot one frame at a time and string them together, that's all movies are. Then we can maybe do this. And that's what I'm talking about that pressure of creativity, that improvisation, to tell that story.
And part of the reason why you have to keep innovating effects is because audiences figure out the tricks.
Of course.
Like initially, I think one of the first films that was ever shown, or one of the first films that was publicly shown like widely to audiences, featured a guy firing a gun at the camera at the end. And initially in the showings when he did it, people stormed out of the theater in fear that they were going to get shot by the person up on the screen because they had no idea how any of it worked.
Because old-timey people are dumb.
They were real dumb. They were real dumb. But like we take that for granted now.
Yeah, of course. How great would it be to be in that audience?
Yeah. And I've been
seeing that for the first time.
As a Disney parks freak that I've been becoming, the idea of the Enchanted Tiki Room.
No, you're only a Disney Parks freak if you got an annual pass.
I have an annual pass, sir.
I know,
It's
you just
in my
got it.
wallet. That's right. Game,
Anyway,
set, match.
Tiki Room.
But the Tiki Room, that was the birth of audio animatronics, which is still owned by Wet Enterprises and was created because they wanted to do something new. So they had a bird outside of the room initially that acted as like a barker to bring people in. And crowds would gather around completely dumbstruck that a bird was talking. We see it now, it's quaint, but then it was groundbreaking. Like you watch Ray Harryhausen now and you go, well, those skeletons aren't really moving, or Medusa clearly like has jerky motions as she tries to fire arrows or whatever. But at the time, it still worked. You were still in the time.
Which is really great, because if you think about it, the people back then were so much more educated about mechanical things.
Yeah.
Right. And even then, this tiny mechanical thing was able to fool them, which was essentially clockwork. But
do you think that
so great.
In general, people are not, even in your line of work, that people are not as well versed in the mechanical now that they will default to digital? Now, you work in a more practical office.
I do. And I absolutely think that people don't know the mechanical anymore.
Really?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just because the digital is easier, or the digital is where it's going and more prevalent, so that's a more marketable skill?
I think nowadays it's a lack of interest. There's your iPhone and it can give you whatever you want. Yeah. Why do I need to know how that fan works? There's just no...
Because the world will always need fans.
Of course. Yes, it will. But I'm the only guy that I know who is like, "Ooh, look at that, a fan that I don't know how it works."
Tommy,
hold on
you're
a second.
The guy that I know that everybody goes, "Hey, Tommy, will you fix this?"
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then when I start explaining how it works, people just leave the room en masse.
Wait, oh no, I didn't want to be here when you were fixing it.
Yeah.
I wanted you to start fixing it, me leave, go see a movie that was made with digital effects, so it's really exciting.
Yeah.
And then I come back and my fan that was broken is done.
Yeah.
Well, before we talk about more visual effects,
yes.
How about an audio effect?
Ooh, what's the audio effect?
It's going to be a series of commercials for some of the other fine podcasts on the Maximum Fun Network.
Oh, I hope the McElroy boys are on there.
I hope those boys are on there too.
All right.
And commercials go!
Hi, everybody. I'm Justin McElroy, the oldest brother from my brother, and me. I'm Travis McElroy, the middlest brother.
I'm Griffin McElroy, and you can deduce where I come into things.
If you haven't been listening to an advice show for the modern era every Monday on MaximumFun.org, then this is what you've been missing. Jokes.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Cowboy Greg, and I'm here to tell you one of my classic railroad jokes.
Celebrity impressions. I'm Zooey Bechamel.
Fun facts.
There's a bear behind you.
Not a cop.
Join us every Monday on MaximumFun.org or on iTunes or wherever podcasts are served.
Like Denny's. The three of you enter a cave of a big red dragon and is standing over a hoard of precious golden rubies. And he says, "What do you do, adventurers? I'm a dragon man."
I cast fire on him. It's very good.
I address the red dragon and say, we're the hosts of The Adventure Zone, a podcast about family playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Very good synergy. Commit to the bit.
I rolled to charm new listeners. It is very effective.
Against all odds.
Everybody, we're the McRoys. We host the Adventure Zone. It's a podcast where we play Dungeons & Dragons together. It's a comedy podcast. We don't take the rules too seriously because there's a lot of them, and we did not take the time to learn them. Maybe listen to us. We come out every other Thursday on the Maximum Fun Network. You can find us on iTunes or on MaximumFun.org. I think this promo's a critical hit.
And we're back.
I love those shows.
Wow. I want to point out, in case you've been listening, which I hope you have, and intently, I mean, you've heard some smacking in the background, maybe a sneeze every now and then. What you're hearing is an adorable little dog whose name is Sparks Nevada.
That is very true, and the greatest dog in the world.
That's true.
Not just because your dog is named Sparks Nevada, Tommy.
No, he is the greatest.
He is the greatest dog. And he has ginormous ears. Like, he has ears like a gremlin. Yeah. Do not get him wet. Do not feed him after midnight.
This is all true, actually. He's very afraid of water, so that makes sense.
What were we talking about before we went to commercial?
We were talking about practical effects versus digital effects.
Great.
For like 27 minutes.
Yeah. All right. I want to pose a question to you guys.
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like this debate comes down to one very basic thing for me. And it is, am I willing to give up the how did they do that aspect for them being able to, you, Tommy.
Oh, I'm right here, Mark.
I know. If the wonder of how did they do that, I lose that, but I gain way more things that are possible in a movie.
Well, why do you go to the movies?
I go to the movies yeah, that's a good point. I go to the movies.
He just likes dark rooms.
Yeah. I'm super into popcorn.
There's, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
popcorn enthusiast.
Are you telling me I can get popcorn at other places?
We haven't told you till now, Mark.
Tommy, how? Why have you guys been hiding this from me? Wait,
Mark.
What is that big Christmas tin in the corner?
We asked you here.
What is in that?
We asked you here today.
Oh, God.
Because we're concerned.
Have you ever gone to a movie theater and been like, how's the popcorn today? Oh, it's stale and overly salted? Wonderful. Man,
Great.
please have 3 garbage bags full and just pour it directly into my mouth.
My older brother worked at a movie theater when we were in high school, and there were guys that would leave the theater. He did it like once, but there were guys that would leave the movie theater with garbage bags full of popcorn every night.
Yeah.
Wow. And yeah, that was just what you did. That was, cause you're not going to steal the candy because the candy's packaged and tracked.
Right.
The popcorn, they just toss it out. So.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
the secondary popcorn market is huge. What's some Redenbacher's, man? I got Redenbacher's right here.
Yo. I got Act 1.
You can only get it at Block.
Hey, bro, I got Blasto butter.
Can I tell you, when I smell popcorn, it does not make me hungry for popcorn. It makes me want to watch a movie. That is true.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah. My Pavlov's dog, for popcorn has nothing to do with hunger. It has everything to do with the experience of watching a movie in a theater.
So let's, I'm not letting you off the hook at this one. Why do you go?
You know what? I go to the movies. For me, I go to the movies. I know people go for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
I like big, flashy spectacle movies.
Okay.
I go to Marvel movies. I go to Harry Potter movies. I go to, when they were making them. I go to watch the spectacle.
So then do you get lost in that spectacle? Do you are you thinking critically the entire time that you're watching that movie and sort of analyzing and that kind of thing?
No,
or
you
get sucked in and you lose yourself in the story? Okay. So then the third question is, if you notice an effect, are you taken out of it?
Yes. If I notice an effect, I'm taken out of it, especially if it is a digital effect that could have been done practically. That, I guess, is my biggest pet peeve is, a digital, like you were mentioning earlier, where a director's like, it would be too difficult. It could be there's too much liability involved. You know what? We'll just do this.
We'll just do it right.
We'll just do it digitally. We'll fix it in post. Is the thing that is a sentence that drives me crazy.
So give me a good example of what should have been a practical effect that was turned into a digital effect and it drove you nuts in a movie.
Okay. These are not great movies. I'm sure the people that work there are fine people. But a lot of, the horror movies that Full Moon Entertainment does. I have a lot of buddies that used to do movies for these guys, Full Moon. So I would see a lot of these movies and they would do digital blood effects.
Mm-hmm.
Digital blood effects to me are like a digital blood spatter.
Yep.
A digital blood spatter to me or like a digital blood in a battle scene, even in like a higher budget movie. A digital blood effect is the height of laziness in filmmaking to me because blood is easy. It is not difficult. Movies have been using blood for decades. And maybe there are some digital blood effects that are done really well that I haven't noticed. I'm sure there were some in, like Saving Private Ryan. I'm sure some of that was digitally done and I'm sure.
Right.
But a poorly done blood effect, I'm like, you couldn't get a bucket of fake blood in a water balloon. Like that to me, lazy digital effects that could have been done practically will take me instantly out of a movie and make me angry that I spent my money on a movie that they didn't take the time to.
So you'll go from being immersed and being lost in the story to taken out of it and analyzing why they didn't
immediately.
Right.
But like a Harry Potter movie, which I loved the Harry Potter movies. I know that most of those effects would have been impossible 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Well, no, not 10 years ago. Half of them were made 10 years ago. 20 years ago, a lot of those effects would have been impossible. And they're done so well and they're done so masterfully and they've taken the time to do them correctly that I'm never taken out of that.
Well, I agree with you about splatters, although I would love to see a completely digital Gallagher concert where he smashes watermelons.
Digital watermelons.
Yeah, I hope you have what you're pretending is a tarp pulled over your head. Like, we'll put everything in post. That would be an achievement. In fact, if you're listening, DreamWorks Entertainment, I'm talking to you specifically. I think you're the ones to tackle this. I want to see Gallagher the movie, but I want it done I want like a giant digital fake couch. I want digital in television.
Wow.
I want digital everything.
You don't want actual Gallagher to do it, right? He's kind of off the deep end now. Who's going to play Gallagher in this?
Steve Buscemi. Now, I watched a lot of Gallagher as a kid. We would rent those tapes and watch them over and over.
Oh, he was brilliant.
Over and over. But I would love to see that digital. I think that would be great. That's all I'm asking for.
Digital Gallagher.
Digital Gallagher. So can we talk about a project that you're working on?
Sure.
currently?
Yeah.
Or have worked on?
Yeah, have worked on. It'll have to be.
The new Ghostbusters.
That's correct.
film.
Yeah.
The highly anticipated. I can't wait for it. The Paul Feig directed Ghostbusters.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thinking back to, the original Ghostbusters and some of the effects there. In particular, the opening sequence in the library, which is I think is a really good combination of digital and physical effects. You have,
Well, back then it was optical, wasn't it? Would those have been digital effects or like what is the difference between an optical effect and a digital effect?
that's the question. Are we saying that optical effects are physical? So the librarian ghost who's trying to get them to be quiet?
Were they? It was a mirror. I'm assuming. I don't know the mechanics of that scene.
The name of the trick that they use in the Haunted Mansion.
I do.
It's a Shufton shot, right?
No.
Where they have
somebody's room. It starts with an L. Hang on. Jeez.
It's specifically like an 18th or even earlier.
Yeah.
Where is it? Where
it's a mirror,
45-degree angled mirrored lens.
that is half silvered, so that you can see through it, and then there's whatever you want to see. They use it in the Monsters Inc. ride as well with Randall,
which was what they used for. On film back in the 1930s, which was a practical effect, what they used for, Jacob Marley in A Christmas Carol.
Yes.
Right.
Is that Jacob Marley was standing to the side of the camera while Scrooge was on camera and they actually did the scene at the same time.
Right. So that obviously practical. I mean, what would be digital about that?
And that's all. Well, when I think of green screen being digital, because at the time, although there's not a ton of green screen.
So,
well, you mentioned things that you can hold. you couldn't hold Slimer. Like Slimer was not in that hotel room scene in Ghostbusters.
He was a
Slimer
puppet.
He was a puppet, but he was
Was
not
he on set? He was not.
I don't think he was on
If
set.
he hated all of those actors. That's why.
He was in his trailer
Refused to work with them.
with a mouthful of hot dogs, right?
Of course.
That's right. He couldn't stand it, except for Sigourney Weaver. They dated briefly after the first film.
Yeah.
Broke up.
But
That's
who
why-
didn't date
What
Sigourney
a
Weaver?
messy breakup.
Yeah. Very messy.
Everything he
Hot
did
dog
was
bits
messy.
everywhere.
True.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
But that entire sequence is all physical. You have
If he was on set, then it was a practical effect.
okay.
If he was composited in later, it's a digital. If he was by a computer, it was a digital effect.
So then let's assume for the sake of argument that in that library everything is a physical effect.
Okay.
It's done somehow optically.
Right.
you have
So the other way of
librarian-
thinking of it is in camera.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's shot. The image that hits the film is the one that ends up on the screen. That's
Right.
in an in camera practical effect.
You could do that film today and do a lot of those things digitally. You could have the cards in the card catalog flying up. You could just do it digitally. You wouldn't have to reset every time.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But there is something that sequence would not be as striking if it was all digital. It would be real. Like, I
And
would
part of it
take
is
out
what I was saying earlier about the actors is that Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and Dan Aykroyd would not see cards
And
flying
every
out of
extra
card
in the
catalog.
background,
and
right?
Every extra in the background.
Everyone's reacting to something that's there at the same
real
time.
thing.
Right. Yeah. Sparks.
Sparks Nevada had my hand in his mouth.
They've become fast friends.
Which could have been a story from this podcast or an actual backstage story from Thrilly Adventure Hour. Mark Evan Jackson loves eating hands. Not a
Super
lot of
into
people
it.
know.
Listen, and not a lot of people know this. I like to eat hands.
I eat hands.
So where were we?
So we were talking about like sequences that works. I'm bought into it entirely. I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, that's obviously a guy blowing into a pipe to make all the cards fly up. Like I can get lost in that entirely.
There's also something about the physics of objects, items that computers can't do very well yet. It's got watered down. We've got watered down. We've got, I mean, there was,
Water took a long time.
but it didn't. There was digitized water in Titanic.
That's true, I guess.
And you wouldn't
and there
have known.
was digitized water in the abyss. Even.
I mean, yeah, right. So water's
What
pretty
am I thinking?
good.
Am I thinking of fire that was the tough one to get down? There's
Fire's hard. Fabrics have been difficult. Hair has been difficult, but we've got it now. But large falling items tend to fall and behave in ways that we can't really understand because we don't have an intimate, practical relationship with it. You know, a plane crashing is kind of a bizarre and, I don't know, it just behaves differently than you might think because it's different than a book falling off your desk, you know?
Right.
We have a knowledge of a book falling off your desk. And if you do that incorrectly, it looks bad. You know it. Right. But a plane crashing, not a lot of people get to see that.
But I have a feeling that if there was a movie with a plane crash that was done practically, it would be gut-wrenching to watch in a theater.
Yes.
Way more so than any movie where a plane crash is done digitally.
Because usually the truth is stranger than fiction, and these little details that may or may not be present in digital. Usually I find it's either too detailed and you see every single little tiny thing, you know, you see a light bulb fall out of one of the overhead, you know, hostess call button things. It's like, okay, well, that's a little, I wouldn't have seen that in normal life.
The light bulbs only fall out of those on Spirit Airlines.
Yeah, that's correct.
Waitress, ding, and it falls into your lap.
I know we charge you an inordinate amount for your carry-on. Now here's a light bulb falling out. Spirit Airlines. Yeah, I hear you.
That's a whole other episode.
Enjoy flying to Atlantic City because that's the only place we go.
So back to effects. Either there's too much detail, and you'll see this in video games too, cutscenes, you're like, wow, that's an overwhelming amount of detail. Or there's not enough detail, or it's a strange mixture of both.
Where like one surface is really well rendered.
Yeah.
The surface next to is like, wow, that tree looks real smooth and flat.
Or like the artist had no sense of scale.
Interesting. Like things in the foreground are less detailed than things in the background.
Right. Or, you know, you'll see an arm of something and then it has a little area that's super detailed. And it's like, okay, that wouldn't actually happen in real life. If you really want a great example of how to do this right in the practical world, go watch a Blade Runner. Mm-hmm. And in the opening scene, there's sort of an aerial flight over the building, the big black sort of monolithic pyramid shaped building. And there's something about, and it's a practical building, and it's about 10 feet by 10 feet by, I don't know, 6 or 7 feet tall. There's something about the way a film camera picks up detail on that building. And as you get closer, it picks up more detail and more detail. And it picks it up in the way that your eye would in real life. So it's extremely believable. And there's these little windows and little details of structure that you only pick up when you're getting closer. And for some reason in digital, that breaks down. And I haven't really figured out why, but that does break down.
Do you think one day the algorithms will be such that digital effects and practical effects will be indistinguishable from one another?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, of course.
It's terrifying.
And is that the day that we all get plugged into the Matrix? Because I feel like I would have a lot of stuff taken care of. Like, nobody goes to the bathroom in the Matrix. You've noticed that in 3 movies.
That would be great.
No number 1s or number 2s. No number 3s.
What movies are you watching where people take number 1s and 2s? Don't get me started on what you think a number 3 is.
Dumb and Dumber, which,
yeah,
by the way,
there's one famous one, but they don't go to the bathroom in most movies.
I think that
you never see Hermione be like, Harry, we're joining you in like 4 minutes, and then run off camera.
And grab the invisibility cloak and hit the faculty bathroom.
When we talk about special effects movies, for some reason, I keep thinking Harry Potter. And yes, the faculty bathroom. I'm sure he did that all the time, right?
I would.
Yeah, that's the
cleanest bathroom.
Yeah, because the ghost was in the prefect's bathroom. Yeah, that's where the prefects go.
Oh, the prefect bathroom. Thank you, Barb. Sure. You're welcome. That was Barb. Hi, Barb.
Hey, Barb.
Hi.
Now, there's a troll. There's a ghost in one bathroom. There's Moaning Myrtle is in one.
Sure.
First of all, you don't want to go to the bath. Like, you just pinch it off for 6 months if you're going to school at Hogwarts. There must be a spell like expecto no pius, and you lock yourself. You don't have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Or just like evaporates instantly, right?
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah. Evapobladderus.
Oh man. There are times on a road trip when I would have used that.
Oh man. Do you do the bottle trick on a road trip, or do you stop?
Only once have I done the bottle trick.
Only once?
Yes.
Okay.
I found it incredibly difficult. Nobody tells you that your body and your mind have trained you since, 5 years old to not pee with your clothes on.
Yeah.
And then you have your clothes on and you're like, just come on. And nothing.
Wait a minute. I've been to several urinals in my life.
What?
And I leave my clothes on.
Oh, you don't do the little
when I go to a.
Oh no,
I don't do the little
down.
kid thing where you put your pants around your ankles to go to the bathroom at a urinal.
Yeah, butts out for sure.
Now, can you please never call it a trick again? It's not like you're David Copperfield taking a whiz into a bottle.
Look,
there's no.
It's a trick if you're
to
using
it.
a beer bottle. It's not so much a trick if you're using a Gatorade bottle because it has that wide mouth.
Yeah, I went Gatorade bottle.
This is, I mean, the principle.
Why I would have
is the
empty
same.
beer bottles in my car while driving. Also problematic.
Mark.
Come back to Dumb and Dumber. Harlan Williams is going to take a sip out of that thing, and he's going to go because that's what he does in the movie. Number 1s and number 2s on film that you can tell those guys never went to.
Also, that was a digital effect. That bottle was not there. Not a real bottle. Totally fake. Had you fooled. Let's get back to the topic at hand.
Sure.
Practical versus digital.
So what are we deciding here? Are we deciding if we could make a film with only one, or which is the superior kind of effect? Because obviously at this point the line is so blurred, you need both.
Yes.
You do, yeah. To make any big, cool movie that looks real, you need both.
I mean, look, what's the film with the cars? You know.
Cars?
No, not that one. The recent one with the
Cars 2.
Fast and the Furious?
Not Fast and the Furious.
Too Fast, Too Furious?
No, in the
Fast
desert.
and the Furious 3?
And the desert.
4 Fast, 4 Furious?
9 Fast, 8 Furious.
In the desert?
12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
Cars in the desert? Mad Max.
That's
Mad
the
Max.
one.
Yeah. Oh,
Mad Max.
Yes.
Mad Max used a ton of digital effects. And everyone's like, wait,
I
what?
assumed it was all practical, that movie.
Well, it was, but it wasn't. So all of the cars and the flipping and the crashing, practical. Why? Because it looks good and it's hard to replicate physics on large objects, like I was saying. When they were driving into that canyon in the middle of the desert and they were kind of getting pinched off and it had that whole canyon, all of that rock formation, completely digital. But
Really?
Completely digital. It was filmed on a flat desert lake bed, sand, the whole nine. They composited all of that rock formation, and you would never think. No. But it's something the computers are good at. I think it's a tool, right? In the end, it's a tool, and it can be used in ways that it's not supposed to be used for, and you'll kind of see. And it can be used in ways where it's really strong, and in cases like Mad Max, you would never know. You would never know or assume. So, yeah.
So you've just told us that our entire premise for this episode.
This has been just a complete waste of time.
Well, hold on. I feel like we're getting close. We're about ready to make our ruling.
We are.
Yes. Right here.
Do I get to rule?
Yes.
You are,
great. You are
great.
part of our Supreme Court.
In fact, we were saying before we started this, I'm a practical effects fan. I mean, but this conversation has changed my mind in ways. Hal leans one way, I lean another. You may wind up being the Justice Kennedy of this Supreme Court, the swing vote.
I will say I would lean towards practical, and this is why. Lord of the Rings is maybe, I think, is the gold standard for digital effects. Mm-hmm. So that was the first, Gollum is a fully realized character, completely, lit properly, everything. And it's Andy Serkis in a suit, completely replaced. However, if you have the fights with the orcs and it's not guys in suits with makeup on, then you don't buy into it at all. You need the practical to sell the digital.
And you could have also made the movie with a physical actor playing Gollum and not lost that much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's maybe debatable.
Right. For me, I guess you mentioned earlier, what criteria are we basing this on? And is it, if I had to make a movie with one or the other?
Right.
If I had to make a movie strictly with digital effects or strictly with practical effects, does that sound like a fair question to ask? Since practical or digital is such a vague, open question.
Yeah, which is more essential
right.
to a film.
And digital effects have only been around for
2 years.
For maybe 10, 15% of 10 years.
I think
15 months, maybe.
I may have underestimated
15. Digital effects have been around as of January 2016. Digital effects have only been around for 15 months.
15 months.
We may be off, but none of us is going to look at a calendar. That's not what this show's about.
Yeah,
right.
No, I have a digital calendar now, and I want a practical calendar.
I go by the Aztec calendar.
Ooh. The world will end as soon as this podcast is over.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I mean, movies were made for a really long time. Optical effects were the digital effects of the day. If you needed something that wasn't in the room, you did a matte painting. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And there's something about the tactile beauty of a well-executed practical effect to the detriment of, I mean, look, could you make Harry Potter without digital effects? If you had Ray Harryhausen around and the actors were compelling enough? Maybe. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, but I would argue for practical effects on the basis that you can make a film with the absence of digital and it still feels real. When you make a film entirely with digital, you lose something. You can't.
Right.
You can't make Lord of the Rings with just practical effects. You could, but it would look crappy.
Right.
I would not.
It would look
watch
like it would look like the sweeted version of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody would be wearing tinfoil suits.
What was that movie called? Thank you for Be Kind Rewind.
Be Kind Rewind. Yeah, it would all be sweeted versions of the different films. So
Tommy, thoughts?
Yeah.
For me, I think it comes down to where it breaks down and how. When practical effects fail, for whatever reason, whether it's my age or my experience, it's forgivable for some reason. I don't know quite why, but I'm willing to accept it without being taken out of that moment of being enchanted by the story. When digital effects break down, it does take me completely out. The illusion is completely broken. And then I start questioning and analyzing everything else that I'm seeing. So practical for me.
Are we ready to make a ruling on this, fellas?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Hal?
People of the world, take your computers, your very fancy Commodore Amigos or whatever you're using now to make those computer graphics.
Your Atari 2600s.
Yeah. And put them aside because we're not ready for them just yet until we put all our practical effects in, because practical effects are the bedrock of all effects. You would have nothing without your practical effects. And on a side note, this is not related, but if whoever works at Hogwarts and is in charge of their bathrooms, clean those things out. It can't be that hard to keep monsters and ghosts out. Don't you all use magic or whatever? So make your bathroom safe. Let those kids go number 1 and number 2. The teachers would be a lot nicer. I think Snape would have been much more pleasant if you had just given him some time to use the restroom.
Hal, can I stop you right there just because you mentioned him?
Yes.
I would like to dedicate this episode to a man who, we mentioned Harry Potter a lot in this episode.
Yes.
We all got the news today, and we're all very sad about it. Can we dedicate this episode to Alan Rickman?
I think we should.
Yes.
This episode is dedicated to Severus Snape, Hans Gruber, the cheating guy from Love Actually.
And by Grapthal's Hammer.
And by
You
Grapthal's
shall be
Hammer.
avenged.
Yeah.
Right.
We love you, Alan Rickman. You are everything. And I'm sorry you didn't get to go to the bathroom in that movie. I would like to point out, I don't think Dolores Umbridge had gone to the bathroom for 30 years by the time she showed up at Hogwarts. No wonder she was so nasty. But there you go. Asked and answered. Practical effects rule the day.
Bam.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Tommy Haake, for being our guest on this episode.
Very honored. Very honored.
Anything?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, our company, the one that I don't own at all, is Film Illusions, and go to filmillusions.com. We make a ton of cool stuff.
Check out some of the cool stuff you do.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you for joining us today. This has been a pleasure and very enlightening, and I was really excited about doing this episode for a long time because this is actually something I have debated with friends for years. Now we have a definitive answer. I know, right?
Gosh,
thank goodness.
Can we put this out on some news bulletin somewhere?
No, you know what? Oddly, we're going to have to put this out digitally.
Oh.
I hope that the computers don't mind. Thanks as always, to our composers, Mike Furman for our theme song, which just won the award from Splitsider for Best Theme Song of the Year, and to Jonathan Dinerstein for our score.
Yes, and thank you to producer Ken Plume, researcher Kate McManus, and graphic designer Uri Kelman. And we know you have a lot of different topics that you want us to settle. This one is closed. You are not allowed to talk about it with anybody ever, anywhere, for any reason. But reach out to us and let us know the things you want us to decide. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/WeGotThisPodcast, or by email at WeGotThisPodcast@gmail.com.
Or you can check us out on the Maximum Fun subreddit, or check us out on Twitter at WeGotThisTweets. And thanks again, as always, to our listeners. We could not do this without you. Thanks for listening. We're going to keep making episodes and finally settling your barguments once and for all. For Hal Lublin, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
And for Mark Gagliardi, I'm Hal Lublin. And don't worry, everybody.
We got this.
We got this.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture. Artist owned.
Listener supported.